All right, well, we'll start getting into it. Hey?
Nice!
Nice. Oh, God.
It's being Australian. Right.
Bonza, Sheila. Hello and welcome to the Drunkduck podcast, the QUACKCAST. This is number 475. I'm Ozone Ocean, and with me is Tanserine. Baines.
Hello.
Oh, hello, Tons. And Pitface. Hi again, Pit. So Pit jumped in already.
Well, howdy there. Boy, howdy.
Boy, howdy. Darn tootin'.
Just shoot me. Don't let me on this cast anymore. Just kill me. Put me out of everybody's misery.
We love all you guys, and it's been freaking amazing to have you back, Pit. Just
Thank you.
awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
And happy Easter to everybody of Orthodox faith. So happy Easter to you guys. The other Easter was last week. I don't know if we wished everyone happy Easter for that one, but yeah. Anyway, whatever. It's fun. Easter's a good
Happy
thing.
Easter to everyone.
Happy Easter egg day.
Happy Easter.
So this week I thought we'd talk about overused tropes. So basically these are, I mean, not necessarily overused tropes. I was thinking of it in terms of like fashionable tropes that are overused that piss you off because they happen to be fashionable and they're just everywhere and it's just an overload. But we can talk about any tropes we like that are sort of annoy us. And it's fun to talk about tropes that annoy us. But I mean, and we have talked about tropes before, which is, you know, fine. Because
That's our trope.
That's our trope, yeah. And there's more of that we can always get into. But yeah, fashionable overused tropes is a good way to get into it. But before we do that, I have to bring up the featured comic. I featured a comic last week. I featured this pretty cool comic called Cragwater, which is done by Tall Froyo, who is one of the hosts of our Discord server. If you could find that and participate, you know, that would be great, so you can talk to people in real time, which is always cool. And yeah, so Tall Froyo. So I'll talk about that now. Hello, I'm Ozone Ocean, and my feature for the week was Cragwater, a caravan convoy of misfits journey across the vast waterless wasteland at the center of the country, tackling the treacherous Ski Ridge together, and the dangerous town of Cragwater hidden within it. It's the only source of water for thousands of miles in any direction, and an irresistible lure for bandits and ne'er-do-wells. So far, all they've had to face was heat, giant centipedes, and a bolting horse. But that looks set to be the least of their worries. This is all digital art. It's sketchy, stylized, fun, and fitting the subject. It's an action-adventure fantasy western that really does fit with the western genre to a T. Seriously, reading this, it was surprising how well it fit with those western sensibilities, that style, that feeling of a western movie. Very much within the proper genre, very American in feel too. And Tall Froyo does our hosts our Discord server with Bound Bun, and he is Australian from Queensland, so he's done very well to get that American Western theme. So congratulations to him for doing a job well done and for getting a feature. So I hope you have a nice little read of Cragwater. Oh, I should also say, this comic was based around a role-playing game, a role-playing scenario. So we have elves and orcs and things like this in, you know, these fantasy world creatures in a Western setting, which is quite interesting. I don't really recall seeing that before, so it's quite original in that, especially being so close to the scenario, close to the genre. So yeah, I hope you have a read, enjoy it, and check it out. And that was the featured comic Cragwater by Tall Froyo. Okay, next up we have the featured music. Gamelis gave us a theme to a comic called Space Daddy Adventures. Now this one sounds dodgy, but it's an M-rated comic, so it's not that. So it sounded. Okay, so this is a big dose of early 70s prog concept mixed with 1960s beat poetry. It reminds me of the music of the British prog band Jade Warrior from their eponymous 1971 album Breathy Flute, Percussion, and a spare jungle sound with creepy British vocals. Slip into your tight black polo neck and black beret, sip on an espresso, and flick your fingers in appreciation of this cool retro piece. Okay, so take it away, Gamelis, with Space Daddy Adventures.
Space Daddy.
Space Daddy.
Space Daddy.
Space Daddy. Space Daddy.
Space Daddy.
Space Daddy.
Space Daddy. Space Daddy.
Space Daddy.
Space Daddy.
Space Daddy.
Space Daddy.
Space Daddy. Space Daddy.
Space Daddy.
Space Daddy. Space Daddy.
And that was our featured music, Space Daddy Adventures. This is a comic by Hashicho, and it's rated M. So if you want to look at a comic called Space Daddy Adventures, you better have a look at this one. It's cool. Okay, so this we're talking about the tropes that annoy us, or fashionable tropes that are overused, big tropes. Baines, you did a great news post about the love triangle, which can be an overused trope. It can be very good when used in its own right. So what is your
it's
thing?
all I think in like how you do it when it comes to tropes. I think, and I see a lot of complaints, or maybe not a lot, but I see that one slammed a lot. I was watching a couple of videos by Terrible Writing Advice. He's a funny guy, and I like the style of that channel and everything. But always saying like a Mary Sue is bad. Usually it is bad by definition. It's going to be probably bad. But the love triangle thing to me is like not by its nature bad, because that is very much. I mean, even if it's you're not literally like in a love triangle in real life, like it taps into like instant conflict and drama, and it's I think from one point or the other or all three, it's relatable to pretty much everybody. I would say. So I don't have a problem with the love triangle, but it can be done badly. Like if it's one bland hero like trying to choose between two amazing suitors, yeah, I think that's what he's talking about when he says love triangle. But I just to me there's built-in conflict and drama to it, so I'm okay with that. Okay. As a concept. So yeah, that's what it was about.
See, tropes can be overused, and they can be used badly, especially when they're just used because it's fashionable and popular. But that doesn't mean they're inherently bad. They can be, just a tool in your toolbox to be used just like anything else. Actually, one of the latest episodes of Bad Writing Advice talks about a I think it was overpowered characters. I think that was the thing. Like an
It's called.
yeah, like an overpowered character can be like, a lot of people will look on an overpowered character as being always bad. And he actually says in the beginning that saying, no, I disagree with that. I think it's just a tool in the toolbox, like anything else. And I think that's how he considers love triangles as well. But when they're overused and they're poorly understood and they're badly used, then they can be bad. You know, when you have your super overpowered character who it doesn't really face many challenges because they're so overpowered, and it ends up taking the tension away. Like like Dragon Ball Z, you know, Pit, you love that one, and that's quite an entertaining, really fun series, especially in the early episodes. But later on a lot of shonen manga, shonen anime, like One Piece, that's another one, Fairy Tail,
Yeah. Well, that's
Black
why you
Clover.
get, like, later on with Dragon Ball in particular, why Goku's dead half the time, because you know what I mean? Like, they need to kick him out for a little bit. And then you see that kind of solution I don't mind, because then you see some of the side characters shine a little bit more. Like, if you talk to any Dragon Ball fan, a lot of them, their favorite character won't be Goku. I do like Goku, but it's when those back characters get a time to shine, you know, when they're not being smothered by the OP.
Which is your favorite character in Dragon Ball Z?
Oh, I'm a Vegeta fangirl, another very
of course.
nice character. So,
Well, Krillin is my favorite by far. Krillin, I love Krillin. So he never wins, never does anything.
no, he's just kind of like, oh, guys, like, what? Not again.
Look, I developed a new technique. Oh, that's nice. No, I can cut pizza with that. That's cool. Piss off.
Guys, I'm going back to my hot wife. My hot killer android wife.
Yeah, Krillin is the best. Even when old Krillin in his like pants and crappy hairstyle, he's still good.
Bowl cut. Bowl Howard cut.
Exactly, the part in the middle. Yeah, but so there are the other, like Black Clover, whatever. Fairy Tail. Some of the the things about those, not some of the things. The main kind of line in those is, overpowered character can't beat this particular villain. Alright, we're going to give him a couple of episodes to train up. Now he can beat that character. That character's dead. Now, he's facing another one who's even stronger. So let's train him up. And that character's dead.
Yeah.
It just becomes a bit like
Monster of the Week kind of stuff.
Yeah. I'll go on, Tons.
That again, that is that can be very, very boring, to be honest. However, it also plays into the way you use it argument that you mentioned earlier, because sometimes the whole point isn't, to have the suspense of whether the character is going to actually beat the villain of the week or even the villain of the arc, but how this is going to come about. If that is not very stylistically set in stone, okay, train him up, unleash him on the bad guy. Train him up, unleash him on the bad guy. Rinse, repeat. Then that can be very interesting, because, like, for example, I haven't much knowledge of Dragon Ball, but I was, and I guess I still am, in a big way, a fan of Kenshin. Rurouni Kenshin, and he is the guy that is the OP, and he is the one that has to beat every nasty character with his very special reverse sword and do a whole lot of things with certain requirements and blah, 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 and so on and so forth. And you know that in the end he's going to beat the guy, whoever it is, no matter how overpowered he is. The point and the whole interest in the character himself is that you know that in order to get there, he will have to jump certain hoops that aren't necessarily always regarding skill. Like he will need to grow to have a small hero's journey, let's say, in order to get in the position to beat the particular character.
Yeah.
He will need to come in terms with his past in order to beat the character. So the characters are basically the reason, the excuse for him to deal with something he has been avoiding one way or the other. And that makes him interesting.
Yeah, and I think that's when you do have a successful kind of Monster of the Week story.
Exactly.
The better ones have more going on. Like, for instance, another well-beloved anime, Sailor Moon, the quintessential magic girl Monster of the Week kind of anime. And many people, including me, watched it for a number of what are they called? Series? No, yeah, there were different series. Anyway, for years, you watch it, and they were always trying to keep the monsters changed up, and the different villains would come in. They're always kind of basically, I want to come and I want to destroy the Silver Millennium, or I want to destroy Neo Tokyo, or I want to, kill Sailor Moon, so there is no Neo Tokyo, that kind of stuff. But then it's just kind of how they dress it up that keeps you coming back. Like, the different personalities. Everybody had a favorite Sailor Scout, I'm a Sailor Uranus. Everybody, and then you could see the way these personalities mesh and stuff like that. And then you have different things, like you have the relationship between Sailor Moon and Tuxedo Mask, which develops through time. They don't start off loving each other just because they were in love in a past life. They hate each other at first, or they annoy each other, and then it eventually gets that kind of fate thing where they're fated to be together. But then towards the end of the first series, I remember the cards really stack up. And in the original manga, I can't remember if it happened in the show, but in the manga, the Sailor Scouts all die.
Oh wow!
At the end. And they have to be like revived, yeah. And there's this whole big thing that happens. Magical girl anime can actually get really surprisingly dark sometimes. But you always the same. So the monsters are always coming back, but you have these developments through it, and then sometimes they'll even throw in like little things that you weren't expecting. Like I remember there's this one time in this one episode where Sailor Moon was transforming, and then like the monster would do something and like interrupt her. She'd be like, "Oh shit," and somebody would have to she would actually be able to finish the transformation, and somebody would have to distract the monster so she could do it. You go like, yeah, like, these guys wouldn't be sitting there letting her do this shit, and it just kind of makes you chuckle, and it does. So I guess what I'm saying is it doesn't only have a plot in the background that keeps building, but it also has like charisma on its own. It's got a charm to itself that makes you keep coming back.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's the important thing.
And even what you mentioned, about the Tuxedo Mask, and her starting off hating each other or being annoyed, and then eventually falling in love, that could have been said to be another trope that has been used a lot. The whole start of hating each other, then we fall madly in love, or even there is even, I think, in some kind of Asian drama K-pop. Not K-drama, something else. I don't remember which one. That is called Slap and Kiss, because the characters.
Yeah.
Sounds very romantic.
Hello? Did she cut out again?
I think we lost her. Yeah.
She did. Someone slapped her and kissed her, and now she can't talk because she's too busy.
She's fell
Oh,
off
we
her
lost
chair.
Tanj. Well, if she can get it working again, then we can hear her continue the her thought when she comes back.
Yes, we will wait. Times. But, oh, she's actually messaged us. But the whole point about that is that, these are the overused tropes. But if you use them correctly, it can be fun. Okay, yeah, Tance, you're back. So tell us about Slap and Kiss.
Yeah, the idea is that the two main characters start off being very much antagonists to each other, and not only in terms of their emotions, but also in whatever other B or C plot is happening, or even A plot, depending on the drama. And then eventually they start liking each other, and then they are basically star-crossed lovers, and they love each other madly and everything. And usually they start off with a marriage. They get married when they don't want to, and they divorce when they fall in love, more or less, in order to have a proper marriage later in the story. So that's a very, very overused trope, and it's usually done extremely badly because the message that is given is that it's okay to have physical abuse. It's okay to sort of, attack each other with a crowbar every second day. It's love in the making. Hang in there, and you're going to love each other.
Yeah.
Hit each other a few times, and you'll be fine.
Always fair.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know about the marriage and love and divorce, like marriage, love, divorce aspect of it, but a lot of that, and correct me if I'm wrong, and if you guys know, but like the couple who, like the slap, slap, kiss, kiss at its basic form, where people don't get along and they snipe at each other a lot, and they bicker and they put each other off, but then they end up as the couple. That isn't that sort of the romance novel, like the very basic like template.
Yeah.
With maybe the details changing.
One kind of romance.
One kind, yeah. That's like, overused is one thing, but that's like the most popular genre of novels, right?
Yeah. You'll see it in a lot of like romantic comedies and stuff like that. And not that I watch a lot, so I can't say, but the few that I have seen, it's just kind of like the paint by numbers. But you know what? Again, you go back to they're tropey, but some of them work because they incorporate their own sort of charm and charisma, and they have, it's like you were saying before. These are tools. Use them or don't use them. They don't make a story unless they're the only part of your story that's carrying what's going on.
I guess that's it, yeah. Like if you're just sort of doing the varying, you're not sort of figuring out who the characters actually are, giving them a personality, giving them motivations, giving them little interesting kind of colors and quirks and whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, and I would say also give them an existence beyond the main plot, in the sense that they don't exist only to love the other main character.
Right.
Yes.
Or
be
only
loved.
to be there as a foil to the main character. Yeah.
Or be the ideal, which can be just as annoying and shitty. Yeah.
The chosen one.
Yeah, the chosen one, or the special, the love ideal,
I was already complaining about that earlier, but I won't watch into it again here.
Well,
I made myself
That's
tired.
on the Patreon video, yeah, isn't it?
No, that was before the Patreon video. But
You'll just never hear that, folks.
the love ideal. That can,
Okay.
and that has been subverted a few times. But, you know, this used to be a thing in a lot of, like, 70s and 80s movies. You know, oh my god, this is my dream girl. This is my dream. I just dream with being with her. And she gets no personality ever in most of these things. There's just none. And this character loves her. And then, they subvert it by making him fall for his best friend or something who's the tomboy girl. You know, who we knew through the whole thing, and we sort of get to know the tomboy.
Yeah.
Oh my god, she's actually loved him. And there's the male version, the female version, the same story.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, it's...
yeah, and unfortunately, often they make the original object of his or her affection as actually being secretly a bastard of some sort, or a real douchebag. Because there is no other way they will pay attention to the tomboy or the scruffy guy or whatever.
So the handsome guy is really a douche and is really mean to nerds or whatever, I don't know, and that turns the girl off. And why can't he just be too good? You know, why can't he just be like fully good, and she gets turned off by him because he's too good? Maybe that would be funny. That would be a good... he's just such a dork, you know? He just didn't do anything. Meanwhile, the scruffy guy is actually, you know, doing fun stuff. And, you know, the other guy's too afraid to, you know, to go and do fun stuff. I don't know. Maybe that would be a fun kind of way. But, yeah. Sort of rambling there. But, you know, that is another irritating trope. The main thing I wanted to talk about, though, was the fashionable trope of the flashbacks and flash forwards that I mentioned before.
Oh yeah, this is the board you've been gnawing on. You've been waiting to get into this.
Oh yeah. I don't know.
How Oz and topic to us.
I'm like a terrier. Yeah, that's in my jaws. I won't let it go.
And then you were in the hospital because you were having trouble digesting that bone. That's a flash forward.
They had to give stick their finger up the Cooper to get it out.
Drag it
you
out with a
warning your
rope.
Grandchildren about eating bones much later. And your grandparents were telling you when you were a baby that bones are really good.
Flash forward to 2050, and they're memorializing me and my great kind of spiel about the flash forwards and how it changed the world, and they got monuments to me everywhere.
Exactly.
With monorails circling constantly so they can see
boners.
it. Yes. Giant boners.
Oh, hail the great boner!
So Breaking Bad, I'll just jump in with this before it goes on. So Breaking Bad did like time playing with time things. So does Better Call Saul now. So they're always like, as you're first watching those series, it's like surprising to you sometimes. You're like, what? Where are we? Like you sort of like having to get your bearings, because it all often, like, these scenes will start in a very specific area of the frame, and like you're seeing something really like strange, like the inside of a lawnmower cutting, or the inside of a paper shredder shredding. You'll see something really weird, and slowly get your bearings on where you are, and it'll be like some out of time sequence. So in Breaking Bad, there was one episode I remember, and it started with this empty house, and it's the Walter White and Skylar's house. You know, it's completely empty, no furniture and all this stuff. And they walk in, and they're all like, Walter has hair, which he doesn't through most of the series, and Skylar is pregnant, and their personalities are different, and you slowly realize that, oh, this is when they first looked at this house with their realtor, kind of thing. And it's like, okay, so like, anyway, so that show will often go into, like, it'll do these time jumps, but when you, like, with perspective of watching the series, I realize that generally, I mean, they don't do that every episode. It was fairly rare. It was only maybe once or twice a season, I think. And it would often, I think almost always, it would be one scene. It would be the opening scene. That's a little out of time thing. That'll give you a little nuance to the characters, a nice contrast to where they were versus where they are now in the timeline of the story. And then the rest of the episodes and the rest of the season would be very much a linear, normal So it
Do you
was
think
like,
that worked well?
yeah, it was great. It was great.
They did it a lot in Breaking Bad, and they did it well because they're actually good writers. The only series...
That's my point. Like, it's
Yeah.
less chaotic than it initially seems when you watch the show. It's like, oh, they're just doing it kind of here and there. You know?
Yeah, it's
Like,
not
mostly
constant.
they're sticking to a pretty, linear narrative.
I think the third season, the whole thing was always based on like a huge meta kind of flash forward. So you have the
That was the big one, yeah.
Yeah, I won't spoil it because I mean, and it's been years since that was first on, but people I suppose would still watch it. So something big happens at the end of the season, and that is constantly alluded to by every single beginning of every single episode of that season has something
That was
to
my
do
memory
with that.
too. I actually sort of rewatched it, kinda. I was actually watching a reaction video to that season, a series of reaction videos. But it was only like 4 or 5 episodes.
Oh,
in the season.
really?
I think
Oh,
it was
wow.
4, yeah. And the beginning, like the teaser of the episode would be focused on this teddy bear floating in the water
Mm.
with this, it's half burned, like half of it is like burned or whatever.
And half
It's
burned
floating
money.
in the water. And I think you'd see some little bits and pieces, and then that was it. And then you'd have a normal episode. And then on one of the other episodes, you'd see, oh, this is Walter White's yard. Like, it's his outside his yard, and you see these, like, body bags or, like, covered bodies. You, like, see these, like, weird, out of context little teasers, 3 or 4 of them. And then it's not until the end of the season, the last episode, in the last few minutes, I think, where you see what it meant.
Yes.
So that was a crazy one, yeah.
Yeah, and you make connections that are incorrect by seeing these.
There's no way of if you don't know it, there's no way of predicting.
Mm.
What
Especially
it is,
so they show like the half-burned teddy bear, and you see half-burned bits of money, and you think, oh, there's obviously a connection there, but no. Well, okay, I'll spoil it and say, yeah, it's not the connection you think. Okay, so
There's on the rewatch, I was like, oh, there's no, because you're missing lots of information until the very end, and a crucial piece of information you have no way of predicting
yeah,
until you finally see a connection, and it's pretty crazy. But yeah, that's a neat one. I feel like I'm talking too much, but I'll just quickly say,
no, go ahead.
in Better Call Saul, it's very interesting. It's a prequel to Breaking Bad, but focused on the Saul character, the lawyer. And every season starts with one scene, like 1 or 2 scenes. Just the teaser is a flash forward in black and white, but it's his future.
Oh.
You see one scene, and it's pretty. I mean, man, does it require patience? So you got to be into it. It's like the story's been told so slowly over 5 years. You're just getting one scene, one little glimpse of his future before it goes back, and the whole rest of the series is,
Yeah, filling you in.
And I'm not talking once an episode. This is once per season. The very first episode is a flash forward,
Oh my
and then
god.
you go back. Yeah, it's crazy. It's kind of awesome.
Jeez. Where I find it, so 2 bad examples of the flashback, flash forward. The Witcher, that was a fun story, but horrible use of flashbacks because there's no context clues to where you are in the story, because everyone looks the same no matter what part of history you're in, and if they have any physical changes, it's too small to see, so that you don't. The only way to tell where you are in the story is because people haven't met each other yet. And, okay, these characters do have a relationship because certain things happen between them, like earlier on in the story, and you can see that happen, later on. But in this particular, scene you're seeing, they don't seem to know each other. So, perhaps that happened before or that happened after. And it's not clever. It's just annoying because it's a superfluous layer. I don't need to have to find where I am in a story. This is just it doesn't add anything extra. It doesn't make it more interesting or more fun. It just is an
more
irritation.
of a distraction.
Yeah, it was so so annoying in a lot of it, especially with the young girl and her development. And we just keep bouncing in and out, like before she was born, after she was born, blah, blah, blah. Just give us the proper crap.
Overcompensating, yeah. And a lot of times too, the problem with, I guess I mean more flashbacks in general. I haven't seen The Witcher yet, so I don't know if this is completely the same. But a lot of times, flashbacks, they don't do much for me, especially if they're supposed to kind of load in some emotional stake, because they're oftentimes doing it at a time when it should have been established already.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, you've met these characters that are in the middle of doing things, and now one of them gets attacked, and then you flash back, and and it turns out he was left on this person's door as a baby. I'm being super vague. It sounds like I'm full of shit. Maybe I am just full of shit, but I feel like it's happened so many times though that it just makes it so forgettable and so irritating, because you're like, all right, you're giving me these extra bits of information that are not relevant to me anymore. I mean, they're not relevant to what's going on anymore. You're not going to force me to feel bad or to emotionally connect to this character because you've already established what's going on. So I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Does that sound similar to what you're talking about?
Yeah, well, that's part of it. There's so many problems with it.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that...
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. No, just go on, just to know if I'm being heard first, and I'll jump in after.
I was going to bring up the Medicis, which is the thing I told you guys about, the show. It was done a few years ago, set in the 15th century, so about the Medicis, the famous family who were bankers in Venice and funded popes, funded crusades and stuff like that, funded artwork. So, but the theatrical version, this TV series with Dustin Hoffman, they tell it through flashbacks and flash forwards, flash presents and flashbacks. Mm-hmm. And the way they do that is to use the past to give background on the present. So we have these two streams. So we're showing the development of their banking empire as they're creating it, and at the same time we're showing the present in what's happening to their banking empire once the father is dead, played by Dustin Hoffman, and all the politics they find themselves in. And that sounds like, oh, that's a good idea, my god, that sounds like a really clever, interesting way of telling a story. But in reality, what's happening is you're just jumping between these two things as if they're both current. But that past has already happened. Mm-hmm. That's never going to match up with the future. These things can't cross over because that past isn't running in parallel with the present. That past is just an earlier period from the timeline. So there's never going to be any connection. It's only going to illustrate further what's happening in the story, which, like Pete, you were talking about, that should be done through the present. You don't really need to keep on going back and showing, oh, this happened earlier, and this is why these characters are doing it. It's like having someone who's already watched 3 series of a show before you, and you're watching the 5th series, and they're sitting there next to you explaining the background of everything that happened to lead up to this point. It's like, fuck off, I just want to watch those 5 seasons and go through this story, and then we can watch the end. But yeah, it's...
Yeah. Another kind of... I'm sorry, Tanya, you were going to say something before and I forgot. You go ahead.
What I was going to say is, really, if the flashback breaks up the story to the point that you feel like you have to quickly put together a jigsaw puzzle to understand where you are or what this extra information means or anything like that, then it has failed. It has not been used properly in the first place. And the use of flashbacks has to be somehow woven into the plot, in the sense that it makes sense why this flashback is happening at the point in time that it is. It's not like let's hit pause now and go to the past because I said so. That sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, give
I
us...
think of...
Oh, sorry.
It's really hard to have a QUACKCAST with 4 people sometimes. It's really good, but then sometimes it's really hard because it's like, you can't raise your hand and be like, my turn to talk. We're all like, ugh. But, and it probably sounds quite weird, but none of us mean it. You know, it's just the nature of the beast. But anyway, but I think of flashbacks. I go right to Terminator 2, and how powerful it was to have flashbacks in that movie, which were actually flash forwards, really?
Yeah, they were both kind of, right, in that movie.
Yeah, mainly flash forwards, because it started off...
It's the future, but it's the past for the character, for certain character. Well, no, I guess it... Yeah, I guess
it'd be the past for the Terminator. So it opens up with... because I saw Terminator 2 before I saw the first one, and I've only seen the first one a handful of times. So Terminator 2, it's kind of an island for me. But anyway, so those flash forwards, I mean, it begins opening with a flash forward to the future and the war and the devastation from the war and these killer machines, these hunter killers and stuff like that, or hunter destroyers, whatever they're called. I think Zim called them hunter killers or something like that. But and how powerful that is, the information it gives you. It doesn't give you a lot of information story-wise, but it gives you enough so that when the Terminator arrives and you have all these characters from this future show up, it has impact, although you don't have very much information to go on. You know what I mean? And so it's establishing. It does well in establishing things.
The nightmarish future you're trying to stop, right?
Yeah. There's this
stakes
and sense of dread. Yeah, there's stakes. There's a sense of dread through the movie, because not only are these people in peril, but you know exactly what they're in peril from. You know, even without seeing the first movie, you know that there's an intense danger. And I think flashbacks and flash forwards are probably well used that way. Sure, you can establish some story stuff, you know, but you have to establish it. And anyway, I don't know. I guess the underlying point to take away from that trope is probably, one, don't make it super complicated story-wise, like it's a puzzle you have to go back and forth with, because that's just tedious. And then two, if you're going to use it in a way of emotionally establishing things, you have to do it from the beginning, in a sense. Don't just interject it in the middle. Yeah. And again, there's exceptions to everything, but it's just, I don't know. Think about what you're doing with these fucking tropes. Yes. I guess. Just think about what you're doing.
Exactly.
Christopher Nolan's first movie is called Following. It was lesser known. Before he did Memento, he made this movie Following. And it's all over the place. It jumps around like crazy. I don't know if he had a plan of where to put each scene, or if he just like threw all the scene cards on the floor and then just put them in random order or something. But it jumps forward, it jumps back, it jumps to the middle. It's kind of like all over the place. And it's a cool story. It's like a sort of one of those noir type stories with a femme fatale and kind of like an ill-fated dude. And it's good. It's well done. But I never had the desire to watch it more than once. And it was a lot of work to watch it, you know, for that reason. Yeah. It's like, it's like strange, and I don't know what's going on.
All right.
It was neat as an exercise, but it was like, and even Memento then, which is shot in reverse, like with this dude who has no short-term memory, and the story is told in reverse from end to beginning. It's like it's cool, and I loved it when I first saw it, and I saw it a few times. But it's like, I don't know if if it's more gimmicky than anything. Like I'm a little bit torn on those two movies.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's good at ways
an
and bad ways to
experience.
do it. Well,
Yeah.
say Run Lola Run, a favorite of mine, and they have like when she's running through various scenarios that happens, because there's 3 scenarios in the movie. She bumps into various characters, and sometimes there'll be just a bunch of photos of those characters which are flash forwards, and it shows, if she bumps into this character, this is what happens in this character's life in this scenario. Because, okay, the story of Run Lola Run is Lola and her boyfriend are together. He has to do a drug deal. It goes wrong. He loses the money, and he's going to get killed if he doesn't deliver this money. And he phones Lola out of panic and asks her to help him, and say Lola tries to help him. So her only way to help him is to run and try and get that money back. And in the scenarios, the first one, she fails to get the money back. She's just doesn't get it. In the second one, she is too fast, and in the third one, things go right. But throughout all these scenarios, these are it's basically different realities that could happen. Yeah. But when she bumps into these people, it shows these flash forwards in photos, and it shows, oh, this happened in their life when she, interacted with them in this reality. Oh, and when she bumps into them again, oh, this happens in this person's life. And that is a really fun it's gimmicky, but it's fun and it's interesting, and it's a unique way of using a flash forward, because they're not actually like giving you a cinematic kind of thing. Stop the story, let's go to this now. It's just a bunch of photos where you piece together the story by seeing all the different scenes that are static.
That is part of the story. That is part of what the movie wants to do. It's not just some cop out for having nothing better to do. It's part of what's going on. It's part of the fascination of what's going on.
Yeah, it shows different realities. So different decisions, different choices result in branching choices for everybody. And it's comical, or it's tragic, or it's funny. This means the same as comical, but you know what I mean. So there are good ways of using flash forwards and flashbacks. So not like we were saying before, with Bane's love triangle thing. Tropes aren't inherently bad. There's good ways of using them and bad ways. Just got to think about it, like Pitt says. But don't use something because it's fashionable, and then overuse it just because, just because.
It's a shortcut or something.
Yeah. It's a shortcut, or you want to be clever, and you think this is clever to just bolt it onto your story, or... So that's flashbacks, flash forwards.
Yes.
Go on.
There's a trope that it doesn't annoy me necessarily, but it's just I something I used to think was really awesome and loved it, and now it's it's just so prevalent that I don't really want to watch anything like this, is the paranormal hunter.
Oh yeah, there's so many now, isn't there?
There's so many. It's just everything is that. It's well, I don't know. I don't know which ones are good.
Yeah, well, we were talking about the what were those Amityville horror people, the
Warrens.
The Warrens.
Elizabeth Warren.
Oh, the Warrens, yeah. And you watch that and you think, they're doing this because, these people are sort of celebrity kind of whatever, it's like a pretend true story. But they're actually doing that because that's a cash-in on the paranormal hunter by saying, oh yeah, but these ones are real. Like, by the real people, sure.
Conjuring and stuff like that, though, I mean... It is, that is a trope. I was about to defend it unnecessarily, but you're right, though. That is a trope. The whole, this happened, and we know it didn't. It's not investing me any more or less. It's probably investing me a little bit less when you say that, oh, this actually happened and stuff. Just, no. But I mean, with the Conjuring and stuff, they do that, these are the stories of the Warrens. And I have never talked to anybody that's been like, yeah, that's how it went down. Like, we know it's a movie. I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah.
something I did watch lately. So it wasn't a great movie. What was it called? It was like Hell House LLC. It was like one of those found footage movies, which is a trope. That's not a trope that upsets me. It can if it's done poorly. Once again, like too much shaky camera and stuff like that. I don't know. But one thing that it kind of subverted for me a little bit was I was expecting it to be like rife with like jump scares and stuff, because sometimes it would set up a scene like that. Like it would have certain angles and stuff that you'd be like, all right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, here comes the jump scare. The jump scares never come though, which I thought was interesting, because after a while it made me kind of drop my guard a little bit, because the main scary things that are going on are due to mannequins that move and change places without you seeing them do so.
That's creepy. It's always creepy.
Like, because they're trying to open up a haunted house, in an actual like haunted house, and so their props, especially this one like big, huge, like nasty looking clown guy, he keeps moving around to different places, but you never see him move. And so like they'd be like touching him and like, oh, what's going on? And you'd be expecting him to all of a sudden be like, blah, 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 blah. But that never happened.
That kind of thing is the tension,
like,
and you're waiting for it to break. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh yeah.
No. That's right though. It's because once you break that tension, this is like jumping from trope to trope here, but like once you break that tension of that jump scare, the tension's broken.
Yeah.
And like it's gone. And then for the rest of the time you're sitting there like, oh, all right, well, when are you going to make me jump again? And then you hear the fiddle, and then a doom from the other side, or somebody puts their hand on somebody else's shoulder and it's a fake out or something, and it's like, that's so cheap. But this movie, I mean, once again, it wasn't the best movie in the world. There are definitely some drawbacks, and it maybe carries on a little too long. Like anyway, this isn't a critique of that movie, but the one thing that I did respect in it was I found myself actually being a bit tense and scared, because it to use a porno term, it edged me kind of without getting me off over the edge.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Oh dear. Yeah, that's.
I'll say one more thing about Saul, and then I'll stop. I promise, for this week. But the last episode, second last of the season, was just the last week, and there's a scene that is maybe the most tense thing I've ever watched in my life, possibly. It's so like edge of your seat, and you're just waiting for something awful to happen. It's 3 characters in an apartment talking, but it's everything that's been set up has led to this, and it's so. I mean, it is so friggin' tense, man. And they, spoiler alert, close your ears for 10 seconds if you don't want to know. They never break the tension. It never breaks. The thing that you are expecting to come never comes. Ever. And then the episode, and it kind of like, it stops. The scene stops. The episode ends. And you're like, oh my God, they never did it. Like that big thing. Because, I mean, that big thing would have been big, but it, like you were saying, Pitt, like the tension is gone. Like that's it. And then you deal with the fallout. But it's like, I loved, for several reasons, I love that they never broke it. No one was yelling and screaming. No one, threw a punch. Blah, blah, blah. But it was amazing.
You know what? On that note, now that I think about it, there was a time in that movie that I was talking about where they do kind of, it wasn't super jump scary, but it was the kind of thing like, the scary thing is coming and then it's going to have a payoff. It wasn't the worst thing in the world, but I do remember it was a time in the movie where I ended up being disappointed because, like there's this girl sitting in the corner and the guy kind of wakes up and you see she's sitting over there, and each time the camera turns, she's like looking at you, and then she's moving, and then he notices her, and every time the camera turns back to her, she's coming closer and closer. and he puts his head under the covers, and you're waiting, and you're like, all right, so he's gonna pick the covers back up, and then she's gonna be there, and it's gonna go rah. And I was actually sitting kind of tensely, like I was actually like, I don't want to watch, you know. But then it happened. The thing is, it happened, and I remember as it was happening, as you see her face right there, I felt super disappointed, and I couldn't understand why for a second. I'm like, wait. But I didn't want you to do that. Like, you've been so good so far. So it's like a testament, I think, to like, yeah, it's disappointing. Like,
yeah.
Anyway,
that's so interesting. Yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah, if you subvert stuff, yeah, you've got to be prepared to own it. You know, like if you go to do it, go all the way, and don't disappoint people by going back to it. Well, we are...
Or don't go all the way, like don't have that explosion. Like think about... I mean, that just hold that tension and release, which is just the basics of drama, right?
Yeah.
It's like... clever ways to handle that. And, yeah, it's very interesting.
It is. We are sort of going like to our time now, so I've got to say goodbye.
Went by quick.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
It was really fun. There was a lot of stuff to get into and to go through. So, thank you guys for being part of QUACKCAST number 475.
Holy crap.
The Holy QUACKCAST. Oh, thank you. Okay. Bye-bye, people.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.